All right, our last dimension of multicultural education is empowering school culture. So this is where we move from outside the walls of our classroom and into our entire school. So we want to take everything that we've talked about thus far and include all of our teachers and our admin, our paras, our students and their families, and just our entire community. So creating a school that empowers our students is a group effort. All right. Okay, let's talk about building relationships. A 2017 study on multicultural education showed that awareness and multicultural beliefs are related to a teacher's ability to create a strong and nurturing classroom environment. So after everything we've talked about thus far, like, do you think this makes sense? I do. I think proving to our students that we care about them and their background and helping them develop their identities makes us safe and trustworthy people in their lives. And that relationship is really invaluable. So what are some other strategies that we can use to build these relationships? The first one is really practice empathy. And this kind of seems like a no-brainer. Most teachers are probably pretty good at this, and they just do it without thinking. But I want us to practice being very intentional in our empathetic responses. This helps our students feel both seen and heard, and it helps them feel encouraged to continue to open up to their teacher. And the next tip is to make a conscious effort to learn about your students' culture. Do your own research, ask questions, and give them opportunities to share and teach. The book I mentioned earlier, Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria by Dr. Beverly Tatum, has a quote by a student that I'd like to share. All right. To get to know my culture, I would tell teachers to understand my language, take a course or something. The other way they can learn about our culture is by asking us about it. Ask us. So if you're not familiar with the term Chicana, this is our student, a Chicana high school student, it just means having Mexican ancestors. So it differs from Latina by being specific to Mexico. So this is one of our students that is a minority, and this is her idea of how she would suggest to her teachers on getting to know her culture. And I love this quote. Obviously, taking a Spanish class as an adult is a pretty big time commitment, so nobody's expecting that from you. But the second half of her quote is what I think is just phenomenal. Just ask. Give your kids an opportunity to share about themselves. Teach your other students to feel comfortable asking those questions and help them practice asking those questions in a respectful way. All right. My mom used to love to bring in conchas, which is a Mexican sweetbread. And so she'd bring those into my school classes, and my teachers were so willing to let me teach my peers. And it made me proud of my heritage, and it made me feel like my teachers really cared about who I was as a person and what made me me. It gave me this platform, this opportunity to share and to teach my my fellow classmates about myself. And I think that those opportunities they really stand out to our students. All right. So this raises the question, don't we want to be colorblind? Don't we want to be able to say that race doesn't matter or ethnicity doesn't matter and that everyone just has the same opportunities? In an ideal world, yes. But we don't live in an ideal world. So we talked about equity and privilege and that there are some system-wide gaps between some of our students, and ignoring those gaps doesn't help them achieve or close the gaps. What does help them achieve is educating ourselves, educating our students, and working together to recognize and appreciate our differences. So, like we talked about, conversations about racism and sexism and things like homophobia can be hard and uncomfortable. But what's even more uncomfortable is being discriminated against. What's even harder is living that on a daily basis. And those are the realities of our minority students. So acknowledging that is really important. And ignoring it doesn't make the problem go away. It just isolates our students. One of the last things I would like to talk about is creating an inclusive classroom. So this is really our take-home points from this presentation. So one, create a space where students aren't afraid to speak up and ask questions because they know they will be treated with respect and not ridicule or criticism. Help them navigate how to be respectful and how to learn about each other's differences. This doesn't come from ignoring conversations or treating conversations about race or other identities as taboo or uncomfortable, even though it might feel like it. Value each student voice and experience. The next is use inclusive language. So familiarize the terms that we went over today, like diversity, culture, intersectionality, and privilege. Practice having conversations about these things. Avoid words or phrases that are offensive, and make sure your students know that these words aren't welcome in your classroom and why. The next step, or the next tip, is to do the work. Take the time to recognize our own implicit biases. And having them doesn't make us bad people. We all have biases because of lack of exposure or lack of experience or stereotypes. And we just have to be willing to work to unlearn those attitudes and be aware of how it might impact our interactions with students. So the good news is that there are a lot of really great people who have shared their experiences, and there are vast resources available to learn from, like the book by Dr. Tatum that I've shared today. And finally, incorporate material and lessons on different groups. Exposure to diversity helps develop positive attitudes in our students. There is a quote from Johnny McKinley that says, "The kids learn how special each one of us is, and they begin to recognize the cultural part of a person as being important." All right, I want to watch one more video, short video, about what happens when we help our students to learn and appreciate and respect each other's differences. So let's get this up. Okay.
As America's veterans.
All right, we have to sit through this ad first.
Face challenges, DAV is there, helping veterans of every generation get the benefits they've earned, so they can reach victories great and small. Support more victories for veterans. Go to DAV.org.
All right, let's get back over to this presentation. All right, so I love that video. How incredible that these players on this opposing team had such a profound respect and knowledge of this girl's culture and her religion that they were able to step up and help when she needed it. So that's what I really hope that all of our students can learn from us. And in order to teach that, we need to be competent ourselves.